Have you seen this? The historical action wildlife horror movie where Michael Douglas slays pussy.
Welcome to Have You Seen This?
The world's only podcast about obscure, overlooked, and misbegotten media.
All discussions will be spoiler heavy.
You have been warned.
Let's get Michael Douglas out of the way, because I just want to say that it is always a chore for me to watch a movie with Michael Douglas in it. And that's a me thing, but I have never been a fan. I just find him intensely creepy.
Just a lizard, just like a lizard person.
Yeah.
For one, I was glad to see that the lions from Roar were getting work still.
Togar!
Yeah.
No. It's, you know what, here's the thing, everyone's always like, oh, just start at the theater, start at some AFI film theses, start on some indie films, you'll work your way up, the movie, it's gonna flip overnight, you'll be union before you know it, and it's always a fucking lie. So I'm really proud, Togar made it, and he actually was able to go union, good for him, man.
I mean,
so many lions don't, so many lions end up, on Hollywood and Vine, dressed as Superman.
If nothing
if I
else,
was an actor who had mauled Melanie Griffith, I'm pretty sure I would not get hired again. But they made it work.
You'll never work in this town again.
Right? Yeah, you and Armie Hammer, you're going to be riding that tiger out of Hollywood.
Yeah. The thing about Armie Hammer and Togar is that they both eat people.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Well, if nothing else, at least Togar got his SAG card from appearing in Roar, so good for him. In case you haven't guessed, speaking of Roar, we have a triumphantly returning guest. It is our friend Emma of the Hyenas and Gin channel on YouTube. Be sure to check out her videos because she just did a very funny one about a dinosaur anime. I didn't know such a thing existed. But yeah, that's Hyenas and Gin on YouTube. Emma, welcome.
Hi, it's good to have. I was going to say it's good to have me back. Does that sound right? I don't know.
It is good to have you back.
All right, good.
Emma is
being very presumptuous there. I'm sorry.
Emma is our go-to animal expert, and that is why we have her back to talk about this movie. What are we talking about, Emma?
We are talking about 1996's The Ghost and the Darkness, which is... So sometimes movies are bad and you have fun watching it because you're like, I could see the guy's zipper, or the editing's all over the place. And this movie is interesting because it is based on something that I think in good, competent hands would make a really good story. Mm-hmm. It's a story about two lions who are eating people.
Just living the dream.
Yep. And it is boring.
Yeah.
So that to me, I think is the biggest shame and the biggest sin that The Ghost in the Darkness commits, which is it is a movie about lions that eat people, and it's very boring. It's not even, I love watching this. I just threw spoons at the movie screen, It's just boring. Ain't no one doing a midnight showing of The Ghost in the Darkness. Riff Tracks is not, gonna release The Ghost in the Darkness. It is a boring, forgettable movie, which is fine. The 90s were full of those. But like I said, it has such an interesting premise, and that's what makes me frustrated about this movie.
Very much.
The movie itself is it's very clear, it's clean, it's simple and artless. That's my impression of it.
And I think a big problem is that while there is a very interesting story, this is not one of the better movies by the screenwriter. This was, of course, written by William Goldman, who you will know from Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, The Princess Bride, many indelible
None of those
classics.
had lions in them.
How come we don't have lions riding on a bicycle while raindrops keep falling on my head plays? He just had to do that, and it would have been a good movie.
If it had been Butch and Sundance and a lion.
If the lions had only been played by Redford and Newman, in big furry suits. But no, the lions did fine in this. The people around them, not so much. But yeah, this is a William Goldman screenplay. Definitely one of his weaker ones. And the other issue is that this movie was also produced by one of its stars. This movie, of course, stars Val Kilmer.
Emily Mortimer.
Very nice to see her.
Yes.
However briefly. But yeah, so we've got Val Kilmer, who was in his notorious difficult phase of stardom. And then
he was in his goblin mode.
Yeah. And then we've got Michael Douglas, who kind of saved the film because it was a toss-up as to whether it was going to get made. And then Douglas read the script, thought it was great, and was like, well, of course, like, I'm going to play a role. So I feel that throws off the balance a little bit. And it's not, man, this is not a character for the ages, this character of Remington the Hunter, because you almost wonder if Douglas didn't come in like, okay, like make me look like the biggest badass possible. And it's just...
That's about all the character development that he got. It was mostly done by costume.
Yeah, and it's funny because Goldman's issue with the finished film is that I think initially he wanted Remington to be just a cipher. Like a complete...
Like Quint, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, because...
The characters are very flat in this.
Yeah, because... Quint does have like some backstory and a very memorable scene, but that's it. You know, like it's not like, oh, you know, like Quint's living on this boat because he and his wife split up and like blah blah. But
yeah, whereas in this, like, character development is by way of, hey, let's have a round of drinks and have a pleasant time.
I'll
and then
say
one
this,
of these
though,
characters is going to get killed.
And I'll say this, though, spoilers for 1996's The Ghost in the Darkness.
Right, yeah.
Quint's death is memorable, and I remember, like, the first couple of times I watched Jaws, I found it very uncomfortable to watch because he dies very horribly.
Yeah.
And when fucking Remington the Great White Hunter, like, he dies off screen.
Yeah.
And so it feels very anticlimactic because, like I said, it's a movie about two lions that eat people. I want to see some vor. And
it also comes after a dream sequence, which is fucking hilarious. The way it plays out. So you're kind of like, that was stupid. Oh, that guy got eaten. Well, shit. Sucks for you, Val Kilmer.
And the way that they found him is actually kind of interesting. That would have been good to put at the front of the movie because it's all death by implication. You just see like all the blood's like splattered across the grass, where it's just this big red patch. Where it's like if you come across that, you're like, well, something bad happened here, but I don't know the full shape of it yet.
Well, that's another thing is that also the director of this film is not one of our greater auteurs. A working director named Stephen Hopkins. Like, no disrespect to the guy, and I do feel a little bad for him because immediately after this, he made Lost in Space.
Oh,
right. So
strike two.
Too bad.
Did he ever recover from that, or is he one of those like directors who just kind of went into like the producer Hollywood like ether, never to be seen again?
Well, yeah, actually, he did work. He did quite a bit of television work. He did in 2016. He made a pretty well received and reasonably successful movie about Jesse Owens. So he did okay, and I'm guessing that probably this set maybe wasn't like the most optimal or like happy experience because Val Kilmer was on it. And
yeah,
it was
just
the
walking
90s.
around snapping his teeth at everyone.
90s Val Kilmer. But yeah, like to get back to the character of Remington and like Douglas's presence, I don't think it's necessarily bad for like an executive producer or whatever to, you know, hey, take part in the movie, fuck it. And it's not that Douglas is a bad actor. It's just that this character is not well written. It's not a well written script. And going back to it, the second
Generally
time...
kind of a problem with a movie, yeah.
Yeah, the second time through that I watched it, you know, the opening scene, for example, where we first meet Val Kilmer's character, Patterson. Mm-hmm. Awful dialogue in that scene. And my assumption was that it had been maybe rewritten after they got it from Goldman. But the screenplay was published under his name. And he let that scene be published as is. And I was like, damn, really?
Yeah, where his boss is just saying, like, I'm an evil man, and I like it when people hate me because I like being cruel to people. It's like, I know the British in, like, the 19th century are assholes, but come on.
Yeah, it's like, put a finer point on it, why don't you?
Right,
It also does that thing in the 90s where they need to have the voiceovers. I mean, like you kind of said, the director is not an auteur. Implication, what was that? I know directors who use subtext and they're cowards. Like, it's not a very subtle movie, and it's just weird to have a Samuel, you know, who's I liked that character's be like, you know,
he's cool.
Yeah, he's like, you know, at the dawn of man or whatever.
Yeah.
There were lions, you know, kind of thing. And also, can we please talk about Val Kilmer's accent in this?
Such as it is. He had to go all the way to Africa to find it.
It is amazing. It is like if you're drinking and you're trying to do an Irish accent, you sort of do the Joe Biden thing where you trail off because you realize you don't actually know how to do an Irish accent.
Did Val Kilmer, like, lose his voice as retribution for this accent?
No, he trails off.
Karma,
He's like, oh, the lions, sir. I'm going to find them and hunt them down.
Yeah, it's...
I mean, he doesn't sound any worse than Ryan O'Neal in Barry Lyndon. It's very similar leprechaun accent.
I would argue that Val Kilmer is a much stronger actor than Ryan O'Neal, though. I mean,
There's that.
Ryan O'Neal works very well in Barry Lyndon, almost because of his blankness.
Right.
You know, just like not a good guy IRL, much like Barry Lyndon.
He's method.
So that's very apt casting by Kubrick. Val Kilmer, on the other hand, is tremendously talented. And
he'll be the first to tell you.
Yeah, good Lord. Like, he actually just came out with his memoir. Have either of you guys seen it? It's called I'm Your Huckleberry, which is great.
I'm still getting through Matthew Perry's memoir. So.
I have not. I was not sure where we as a society stood on Val Kilmer, because on one hand, he was... obviously notoriously like difficult and a fucking nightmare to work with. On the other hand, he like never confessed to wanting to eat another human, so maybe the truth is in the middle. I wasn't sure if we have a society of forgiven Val Kilmer, and more importantly, if Val Kilmer has kind of learned and grown as a person.
I haven't had to work with him, and you know, I liked Top Secret, so
Top Secret is still like a great film. But I did look into Val Kilmer a little bit, because obviously there has been a lot of water under the bridge since 1996. And as Tim alluded to, Val has since suffered throat cancer, from which he recovered, but he has lost his voice. Did either of you see the documentary that came out about him last year?
No.
It's a little bit... It's work. I don't want to say a little bit. It is a vanity project. And you know how actors are. They love to be on camera. So Val Kilmer has obsessively documented most of his life from like his days at Juilliard on, practically. So he had a lot of videotape to draw from. And of course, like and he does have a couple of, there are two directors credited on this documentary, but I'm sure he was calling the shots, because why wouldn't he? Right. And, you know, it is fairly vain. It is a little superficial, much like his memoir, which I think was produced, at about the same time and in kind of in concert with this documentary, because it repeats some of the same themes. And it's interesting, like, what he reveals and what he doesn't reveal, because of course, you know, if anybody's, you know, if y'all are like me, you are going to want to read this book to find out, like, does he talk about being a huge asshole on the set of so many movies?
Well, I have a feeling everyone's a hero of their own memoir, so you probably aren't going to get that.
Well, he sort of alludes to it in an oblique way. But
yeah, it's a lot of look at what you made me do.
Well, pretty much, because there's a part in the...
I'm not normally like this.
There's a part in the documentary where he does talk about Island of Dr. Moreau by presenting some footage from his time on the set, And most of it is of the kind of the pinch. Of course, like Richard Stanley was originally the director on that until he got fired.
Yeah, that was a whole other can of worms.
And he went feral, basically. The documentary Lost Soul is very interesting about that film. So they brought in John Frankenheimer, who was a tyrant of the old school. Just like, I'm here to work, I'm here to finish this. Like, everybody fucking fall in line, and I'll holler at you if you do. So there's a lot of footage of Frankenheimer, like, yelling at the crew, and Kilmer commiserating with his co-star, David Thewlis, and, like, a couple of interactions between, like, him and Brando, which seemed to be friendly. Even though apparently, like, Brando, like, like, alpha'd him, like, as soon as he came to set.
Brando, you don't say. I mean, it sounds like overall Val Kilmer is very self-possessed, but that can be abrasive. Like if you just take that too far.
Well, yeah, and if you look at the Lost Souls documentary, there's a lot of there are a few anecdotes where people talk about how, like, he approached the collaboration of filmmaking, which was basically to just, like, smoke a cigarette and then just be like, yeah, it's not going to work. Like, it's not going to cut together. It's like, well, who asked you how it's going to cut together?
I think my thing is, like, when you hear these stories, like, oh, he was a monster on set and stuff, and I'm like, my question is always, like, to who? Because I don't care if him and some other director with big egos, like, came to blows. It's fucking Ken Watanabe, like, let them fight. My question is, like, is Val Kilmer screaming at, like, the craft service people?
Right.
Is he, I guess that's my thing. Is he bothering and harassing and bullying, below the line, the working class man?
Yeah, that does make more sense. Like, contextually, like, are we just looking at, like, a he said, she said battle of egos situation?
And as such,
that just comes down to PR.
Sure. And as such, Val's side of Island of Dr. Moreau or what have you is an incomplete picture. Like, and even if he weren't, like, I think kind of protecting his own image a little bit, that it would still be an incomplete picture because, he's not going to have the entirety of the story. But I do find it interesting that he used the footage in that documentary in such a way to, I feel like he kind of wanted to, like, vindicate himself a little bit. Like, look at what a mess this set was. Like, look at our director. Like, our director was not chill. Here, my co-star agrees with me.
Yeah, and I mean, given the context, too, like, who are you going to single out as, like, the one problem actor from the Island of Dr. Moreau, of all things?
I mean, it's a toss-up because, like, Brando was trolling the whole time, too, because he just had contempt for the proceedings, which, like, we can debate whether that's right or not, but...
They aren't necessarily bad people, but they're just people in a bad situation, and they, it brings out the worst in them.
And a further wrinkle is that, like, yes, it sucks that this happened to Richard Stanley, but since then, like, some pretty bad shit has come out about him too. So it's like, well, I'm sorry.
Who does he want to eat now?
I'm sorry he didn't get to make the movie he wanted, but, like, he also doesn't seem like a chill dude. But hey, who's chill in Hollywood? It's like watching pro wrestling and expecting anybody in pro wrestling to be a good person. Like, it's not going to happen. But
don't meet your heroes, folks.
Right? Yeah. So the Val documentary is, like, interesting, but if you want to learn, like, just what kind of a person is Val Kilmer, like, you're not really going to learn it because it is so opaque. And
what kind of person does Val Kilmer want you to think he is?
Sure. I don't blame him for maybe not wanting to be like, hey, like, I'm going to tell you literally every single thing about my life and, like, how I've fucked up and how I've hurt the people around me.
A person who thrives on popularity wants to explain, like, why he's a bad person, wants to get you to not like him. Who would do that? I mean, Val Kilmer or no? Like, that's just career suicide.
Yeah.
He's also kind of...
Sorry, go ahead.
Like on the Kanye level.
No,
he's
in kind of an older generation. Like, now, especially if, like, Me Too and stuff, it's all about, posting something on Instagram. It's a little graphic text like this is not represent who I am. I'm taking the step. Blah,
the paste bin apology.
I hear you. Yeah, and Val. And here's the thing: I do not think for a moment anyone who's ever done that fucking paste bin apology actually regrets, anything they are apologizing for.
Yeah, that's damage control.
Yeah, it's damage control. But even then, Val Kilmer comes from an older generation, and his ego would never allow for even the paste bin apology.
Yeah, he's a boomer.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is fair. And
that's why he got eaten by a lion. He just couldn't swallow his pride, so to speak.
Wah, wah.
Another funny thing is that I did look through his memoir to see if he had anything to recollect about making Ghost in the Darkness. He mentions that he went to Africa to make Ghost in the Darkness, and then he says, "Oh, and I was seeing Cindy Crawford at the time. Let me tell you what a great person Cindy Crawford is." Which is,
I met her. I did a birthday party for her kids once. She was actually very nice. So I will agree with Val there. She was a very friendly, down to earth lady.
That's another point for Val.
I'll say this. Like, I'm sure that maybe Joanne Whalley would say differently, but she does appear in the documentary, so they are at least like on speaking terms. And his kids also participate in the documentary as grown kids, and he does seem to genuinely love his kids and have like a good relationship with them. So that also reflects
if an
well
actor
on him.
can get their adult children to still talk to them, that does seem like another point in their favor.
Yeah, and in fact, I once sold him and his kids books when I worked at the Borders bookstore on 3rd Street Promenade. Rest in peace.
Did you ask him to snap his teeth at you?
I did not. I was just like, oh,
damn,
that's Val Kilmer. And he
bought
so much stuff for his kids, like a pile of books. So much that I think I realized only after he'd left that they'd actually dropped a couple of things and forgotten to take them.
What do they care?
Jen, have we ever bonded about being like ex-Borders employees?
I had no idea.
I used to work at a Borders, and I remember I quit one day. I'd come in. I was like, today's my last day, and the poor assistant manager was like, okay, but just so you know, you've quit without notice, so we can never rehire you at Borders Books and Music.
And you were like,
done at Borders.
No,
yeah, you'll never work at this Borders. You'll never work at this Borders town again.
I guess we'll just have to go to the center.
Well, and the joke was on them because look what happened to Borders.
Yeah, they didn't do much hiring of anyone after that.
No, I worked at, all right, so you worked at 3rd Street Promenade. I worked at the Borders at the Howard Hughes Plaza over by...
I remember it.
Is it Manchester, I want to say?
Yeah. Ugh. Geez, we could probably do a whole podcast about that.
Podcast about Borders.
Stories.
Oh my God, we call it Doctors About Borders.
Jen, get your doctorate. We need to make this work.
All right, back to school I go.
Yep.
But yeah, so Val has obviously changed a lot since the days of Ghost in the Darkness.
And its sequel, Ghost in the Shell.
Like he
I didn't know those two were related.
And it is a little tough to see him in the documentary doing, because he's got I don't know what, like a tracheostomy or whatever you call that. And he has to do the thing where he holds his throat to speak, and you can barely understand what he's saying. Is he one of the guys on those anti-smoking ads when you used to watch Channel 1 in middle school?
Yeah. It's I was just smoking, don't smoke. Aw.
Yeah, which is tough for an actor, to lose your instrument like that. So I do feel bad for him for that. And again, it's interesting to see what he chooses to show to the world, because to show himself like this, not just older and not looking like the Val of the 80s and 90s, but also somewhat debilitated, not in his prime and not really able to speak. I would commend him for that, because it is that does show a certain amount of vulnerability. It's just that there's a lot about his personal life that he doesn't seem to want to address for the public, which, hey, maybe that's fine,
fair.
and he doesn't owe it to us.
No, we own him. I've seen him on the screen. He's now my property. I own the movie, I own the actor.
But
Your life should be laid bare to me.
But what I'm getting at is that I actually do like Kilmer as an actor. This is not one of his better roles, maybe because it's not one of his better movies.
It's not a good movie, yeah.
Right. And it is an interesting premise. So maybe now would be a good time for Emma to tell us a little bit about the what I would call the titular characters. So this just to give you guys an idea, this movie is about the building by the British of the Uganda Railroad in Kenya. It takes place at a place in Kenya called Tsavo. Maybe the worst
What is Tsavo famous for?
Maybe the worst place God created. So
That's what the Samuel, our narrator, says.
yeah. So
and Jen's like, that's not true. It's Simi Valley.
what am I wrong?
Well,
And so the British are building this railroad with native labor, which is, about as chill as you would imagine. They don't spend a lot of time on that in the movie, unfortunately, which might have made it a more interesting movie. But the problem isn't just that Val Kilmer's character, Patterson, has to be in charge of building this bridge. It's that his workers are being eaten by fucking lions.
yeah, this is a real two-fisted tale of managerial science.
Two-pawed.
Reddit.
Yeah.
My 34 male coworkers, probably 15 to 42, keep getting eaten by lions. Male 7 and 7.
AITA.
Yeah, and so these are these infamous lions were known as the man-eaters of Tsavo. And Emma, this is where you take over because I feel like you know a lot about these lions.
Okie dokie, yeah. So this is an actual phenomenon. In the very late 1800s, in the middle of attempting to make a railway, there was a phenomenon where multiple people were eaten by 2 male lions. So the big question, people are like, whoa, I didn't know two dude lions could be together and do dude things.
Their love was beautiful.
Their love was pure. They're putting an end to hetero cis-normative roles.
Yeah,
Two maneless male.
Yeah, so that was the big thing about them. So they were maneless, which does exist in lions. It's not unprecedented. There's also been instances of female lions who have acquired manes. And so 2 male lions together is actually fairly common. Lions are one of the few species of sociable big cats. So if lions are in a situation where they cannot find female lions and have a pride, usually 2 lions will kind of hang out together. It tends to be 2 or 3, though there was a really interesting phenomenon, I want to say either in the aughts or the teens, called the Mapogo Lion Coalition, and I think it was like 6 male lions that just basically took over the entire range of Mapogo.
They formed a democracy. They had voting rights. It was wild.
They did, and then like all good countries that form democracies, there was a coup implemented by the U.S. government. So
the CIA came in and killed all the lions.
Yeah, the CIA came in and actually did kill them. So it ended with the deaths of Kinky Tail and Mr. T, and it broke. Those were actually, they all had names. So there were 2. There was Kinky Tail and Mr. T, and both of them dying broke up the democratic.
The CIA came in and installed a puppet leopard government.
Yeah.
It's the Black Panthers all over again.
Yeah. So with the Tsavo, going back to my homework here. So with the Tsavo man-eaters, we're not actually sure how many people were eaten. It ranges anywhere from 30 to 100, and there's obviously theories about why lions are going in and eating people,
right?
Because it's usually not super common. Lions are creatures of habit. They're usually going to go after kind of, hoof stock and things they're kind of conditioned to go after. It's rare, animals, even dangerous animals, actively go over people, especially in places like camps, which, and this is actually kind of true to form, where they're like, oh, we're going to make barriers and stuff to keep them out. Like, this actually apparently
the Boma
did happen. So, yeah. So it's one thing for a lion to go after, like, someone, stranded somewhere in the Kalahari, but the idea that these lions were going into, camps with all little workers, little nightcaps going, is quite the phenomenon. And like I said, they at least documented, killed at least 30 people until Patterson came in and culled them. And if you're interested in lions or lion history, they are actually at the museum in Chicago. I don't know if they stare into your soul the way the narrator says at the end, but
they do still kill people though there.
Yeah, so if you want to go and see some...
Yeah, it's an interactive exhibit.
Right,
well, I was going to say, the lions Uday Hussein kept and fed to journalists and other forms of people he perceived as dissidents probably have died by now, I would imagine.
Well, yeah, probably from heart failure. I mean, you can't just go eating people every day.
Yeah, so I was going to say, and the Iraq War was a while ago, so they're probably not alive. So if you do want to go and look at some lions who have actually eaten people, your best bet is to go to, the Fairfield Museum in Chicago, and say
the Field
hi to
Museum.
The boys. Say, what's up, boys?
Yes, and you can... Emma actually sent me this meme when we were talking about recording the show. It's if you're an internet person, you can walk up to the glass and look at the two lions and just say two of them. Which, I don't know, maybe if
that's the plot. That's the plot of Ghost in the Darkness. Two of them.
Pretty much, yeah, because it's and it is a good premise. It's like, one man-eating lion is one thing, but like two working together, that's a little fucked. And you could take it in all kinds of interesting directions. I believe that Goldman's original...
I have no idea what you're talking about.
I believe that Goldman's original pitch was basically...
I'll put it in the link.
Yeah. I believe Goldman's original pitch was, this is Lawrence of Arabia meets Jaws.
Yes, which is terrible because
it falls short of both.
Don't oversell it. Yeah.
Yeah. What is the old MST? The quote: "Don't talk about a good movie in your bad movie."
Yeah.
Here's my thing, and I mentioned this to Jen, which is, like I said, the premise is good.
Mm-hmm.
There we go. And I feel in the right hands, you would have a good fucking, like, borderline The Terror story. I think if you focused on the mix of, like I said, the British wanting to Britannize Africa, you have the native people. Why can I never remember their names? Sorry, the
Maasai.
Yeah, you have the Maasai people. You have some different tribes. You have a history. You have the Indian, and if I'm really sorry, I think this is the term, but if I'm not, please don't cancel me. I'm growing, I'm learning. You have the coolies who are coming in from the Raj, to work on these things too. And that was my whole thing of Patterson, which the movie doesn't address because it's a coward, which is I would like to see, the point of view. How does an Irishman feel about going to another country that's being forcibly colonized where everyone there is, treated like livestock?
Shit, yeah.
And I feel like, and so you have all that. You have these these cultural and conflicts. You have, the incredible, like, harm and damage that colonization is happening with. You can put in another, like, kind of misguided missionary bringing Jesus to the savages and
thank
stuff.
God that guy got eaten.
Oh God,
yeah,
I know that. Yeah,
he didn't really even have a chance to do anything.
Yeah, he
luckily,
didn't convert anyone.
Yeah, it's like let me mention what my goal here is. Nope,
I didn't even get to spread yellow fever to the workers.
God is good
for their benefit.
Yeah, so you have all these, and then in the middle of that, you suddenly have these two lions that are not acting in a way anyone in this group knows lions do, and you can be like, what's going on?
Yes.
Are they evil lions, or is there something more?
Yeah.
And I think you could have a really good story, and that's going back.
A good Call of Cthulhu adventure, anyway.
Yeah, and like I said, it's like the movie. It's shot fine. It's there,
Vilmos Sigmund is the cinematographer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's kind of my takeaway from it, is that like it's like this elaborate, sanitized, simplified kind of Hollywood adventure. Like all those nuances that you're talking about, that you bring up about there are cultural differences between like the Africans and the Indians, and like you mentioned too, like an Irishman helping to further colonialization. You have civilization pushing into the wilderness and the wilderness pushing back. Like there are a lot of themes there, but this just has kind of a slight Jerry Bruckheimer-esque kind of feel to it.
Yeah, Jerry Bruckheimer without the kind of exciting kinetic action too.
Right, yeah.
Because say what you want about Bruckheimer, like he does give the people what they want.
Yeah, but this does have that very sort of facile 90s feeling to it.
Yeah.
As exemplified by Jerry Bruckheimer.
Yeah, which, and also in that kind of way, which I think Emma mentioned before we were recording, I think over text, was the way that in the 90s, like we were kind of starting to understand that maybe, at least and I know we understood that way before that, Hollywood just takes a long ass time to catch up to any of this. But in the 90s, we were kind of starting to make films where we're like, hey, maybe like the actions of these colonialist nations weren't like necessarily so chill and good.
Audiences don't want that.
Yeah, like...
they don't want to be questioning or thinking about things.
And, but we hadn't reached the point where you wouldn't not cast a white guy in the lead. It's like, yeah, Dances with Wolves is like a little bit of a revisionist Western, but it's like, look at this white guy coming in and like Indianing so hard that he's really good at it. And Patterson's kind of assimilation into camp life and his job as overseer is pretty frictionless apart from these lions.
And that is kind of weird on some level, which is, I think, for better or worse, you can see another movie where Patterson goes and he talks to the Maasai people and he learns from them, and stuff. And here it's just like, oh, he spent some time in India, so he's, on top of committing numerous atrocities under the Raj, he's hunted tigers. So how hard could it be to hunt a lion?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a tiger without stripes. Same deal.
Yeah, there we go. Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I don't know if maybe it's petulant of me to be like, I wanted more character development from the Ghost in the Darkness, but I don't really feel like Patterson learns or grows, if that makes sense.
Or even just playing up the sort of disregard for human life and safety there. Like getting his boss, who they've established is a jerk.
Oh, that was the weird thing, because usually in those 90s movies where some angry boss comes in and is like, I'll make your life a living hell if you don't get those reports done. Usually gets like eaten by Godzilla or a T-Rex or something, Yeah,
and no, he just goes back and gets his knighthood.
Yeah, no, this guy does not get eaten by a lion, which, going back, it is a movie based on real events about two man-eating lions. And I do not see a lot of people get eaten by these lions. Oh, you want to talk about like good characters though? That one Maasai guy who gets bodied really early on. Oh, what was his name?
Yeah, after he says that he has
presence.
Killed a lion with his bare hands.
Bare hands. I mean, like, I want to say, like, it's a very mediocre movie, but that line did get a laugh out of me.
Yeah, because it's like, I mean, it is a good lie if it's a lie to say like, yeah, I fucked up a lion with my bare hands. And then he gets eaten by a lion, so the lions called his bluff. They're like, okay, motherfucker, let's see you use your bare hands now.
And, more cliche, African guy dies first.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And going back to the character that we mentioned of Patterson's boss, basically, I really want to emphasize how bad the fucking dialogue is in this movie. Because I wrote down a line that he says verbatim, which is, I don't care about you, and I don't care about the 30 dead. I care about my knighthood. And it's like, okay, so did the writer just kind of like take his like character breakdown that he was writing down to kind of like feel this person out and just like put it into the dialogue? Because that's dog shit. Like all the scenes with this character are dog shit.
It's one of those things too where it's like, well, how many more of your men do you want to have eaten by lions, to jeopardize your project? Like,
remember though, they're
support...
not his men. They're the other. Like I said, they're Indians who have come over to help with the project, and native various tribes.
Yeah, but what I'm saying
Kenya.
is, like, as a responsible manager, though, he has to understand that, like, he has to have workers in order to finish the job.
Me and Jen were talking about this over text, though. There is no such thing as a responsible manager. If you are very lucky, maybe you won't catch on to how incompetent your manager is until later on.
Yeah, a lot of people fail
upward. But he's not good at his job, is what I'm saying. Like, if they need to complete the bridge effectively without having all their workers die, then it does make a lot more sense for him to allow a garrison to protect the people actually doing the work. It's just short-sightedness. I mean, this guy hasn't taken any, managerial classes, I think.
He's one of those,
he was probably born into this upper class British lifestyle, dare I suggest.
You think back in the day they had those like awful like self-help books all the fucking terrible managers have in their office? How to lead so people will listen, and how to listen so you can lead.
I mean, I think it was just assumed at the time.
Who moved my cheese? It simply is not done.
Who moved my Welsh rarebit?
Right.
I think that at the time it was just assumed that if you were like a landed Anglo man, you were capable.
Right. Yeah, he didn't have any qualifications other than he was born into it.
Right.
Or he was rich enough that, like, yeah, you're in charge, I guess.
And this is really indicative of where the movie fails. Is that could be a really interesting bit of friction between characters, is the fact that Patterson's boss is so arrogant. In fact, it could say something broadly about British culture and colonialism, and yes, man's folly in the face of nature. But it's not there. It's like, oh wow, that guy's a real asshole. And we're supposed to just like hope Val Kilmer succeeds.
Yeah, it's just like, why is he an asshole? It's not important. He just do the job.
It's just weird because I guess they were like, well, we need some sort of like, pressure for him to finish the bridge. But it's like, no, it's his job to finish the bridge. He wants it to be like Jaws. So this is supposed to be the mayor who won't close up the beach.
Yeah.
Only bad.
It's like, we need to get that train through. It's like, we understand that. That's the whole premise. Of course we need to get the train through.
Yeah, and this, maybe because this was a movie written in 1996 by kind of a, I would say an old school kind of screenwriter, is that they, forget like giving the main white characters a point of view. They also forgot to give like any kind of a real point of view to any of the workers. And this might have a lot to do with Goldman, who I will say is a fine screenwriter, but I wonder if he maybe wasn't kind of stuck in that mentality of just writing like, I'm going to write a heroic tale about heroic men. I have read a couple of his memoirs, Adventures of the Screen Trade and Which Lie Did I Tell? And Which Lie Did I Tell? He actually does talk a little bit about Ghosts in the Darkness.
Right.
And
yeah, because if you don't care about any of the characters getting dragged off by lions, it's like, okay, we're down one more prop.
Yeah, and I think it's instructive, kind of the way one of his approaches to screenwriting. And I'm not even saying it's a bad approach. I'm just saying that it says something about like him, like as a person, where he's coming from. He would always write screenplays with certain classic actors in mind. Like, if he was writing a screenplay in the 80s
Michael
about
Douglas.
Well, no, like further than that, like he's like
yeah, I know.
He would cast in his mind actors like Cary Grant. So he's casting someone who started it in the 30s, and if you look at Cary Grant, like you're not generally going to see him in a movie like, or playing a character that's critical of colonialism. You're going to see him play like the cool, like sexy guy. So Patterson is thus somewhat...
Hey, baby, I'm a colonialist.
Yeah, like Patterson is thus somewhat of a colorless character. And like maybe they did interfere with the portrayal of Remington, but I don't know. Was there a lot going on with that character in the first place? Because you wanted him to have no backstory. I agree that it didn't serve the character well to just kind of shoehorn in a couple of lines about him, like, I think fighting on the side of the Confederacy in the Civil War. But, like, I don't know, man. Like, what did you intend with this character?
I guess, and I like that you said, because, like, what do you want to say? Like, oh, this guy fought in the Confederate. Okay, and? Like, you know, what's this? No, what's it say? Like, I can't remember Val Kilmer's character off the top of my head suddenly.
Patterson?
Yeah. What, does Patterson have an opinion of that? You know, is Samuel, like, a black man, you know?
Yeah, especially because they give that dialogue to Samuel. Like, he's all sad. He's like, oh, yeah, like, his country fought a great... I wish I could do Nick Mullen's African guy voice, but I won't. His country fought a great civil war, and he fought on the losing side, and he lost everything. And I was like, am I supposed to feel bad that, like, General Sherman came through and, like, beat their asses? Like, he was fighting on the side for slavery.
Was he relegated to a slave after that? No?
Yeah.
Okay, well.
And like I said, going back, I think you can have an interesting story. An interesting story, I think it's fine if someone's like a Confederate soldier and you just want to be like, whoa, this guy is reprehensible, but doesn't do anything with it, you know?
Yeah, even his death, like, carries no dramatic weight. Because, I mean, you understand that the guy who's better at this, who shows up and isn't the main character, is supposed to die to show you how bad things are. So that, you know, the primary character can then, you know, grow into the role of the dead person, but it
happens so quickly.
Yeah, he's
too.
just kind of there.
No, usually that trope, you know, where, you know, your Christoph Waltz dies or whatever. They're supposed to be like, what is it? There's a stupid trope, like the arcs. Oh, the hero at his lowest, you know,
right?
Yeah.
And we gotta, you know, see Patterson sulk and wail and gnash his teeth and be like, oh, it's hopeless. I never see me wife and me wee babe again.
You know? Oh, me bairn.
You know, kind of shit. And then him and Sam are like, okay, we're gonna do it. We're gonna, to quote another movie in the 90s about men killing large predators, we're gonna kill that motherfucker. God, do you ever see
they got
Edge?
lines out here this big?
God, I remember that. The audience like hooted and hollered and clapped like it was a fucking Marvel movie and the Hulk had shown up.
Well,
it was a different time back then. People were just delighted to see a British, like, Academy Award-winning actor say motherfucker. But anyway, so they go, and then they go and do it. And it happened, but like I said, in Ghost in the Darkness, there's not those beats. They show up, you're correct, there's that beautiful display of blood, which would have worked a lot earlier on before we knew it was lions. Like, who could have done this, you know?
Yeah.
We know it's lions going in. We are familiar with the, you know.
Yes.
They need to put it together.
Yeah, so they don't. They, like, you know, they burn his remains and they go kill a lion in the end. Like, there's not that pause and that beat. They're so indifferent. Samuel's like, fuck this guy. You know,
he fought for the South in the Civil War. Fuck
owner.
this guy.
I'm glad he's dead.
Yeah, because they take a particular delight in showing, like, just how down and chill Remington is with, like, the Maasai. And, you know, he speaks the language and, like, God, you know, they just fucking respect him so goddamn much because he is just so fucking cool. Like, he is just a cool fucking guy. And it is really, I don't know, maybe it played, I mean, I feel like it was a little bit hack in 96, but, like, now it's just like, come the fuck on.
Oh,
like,
no, it's so
not
fucking,
really earned.
No, it's fucking cringe to just see, like, a white dude, you know, with a southern accent being considered the coolest guy on the block, like, surrounded by, like, you know, a bunch of, like, you know, a native African, you know.
He's like, hey, I think I own your cousin.
But we won't know for sure until they invent DNA testing.
Yeah, well.
Anyway.
Yeah, your name's McGregor. Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, we're just going to obliterate your culture. Like, sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's it's
just like we're gonna kill your wildlife. We're just here to slay.
Yeah,
slay queen.
Like there are so many questions that this movie could have asked, and I'm not saying that it's necessarily bad to make a movie which is just kind of about like heroic deeds. There are certainly movies like that which succeed very well, but when you pitch something that is going to be Lawrence of Arabia meets Jaws, I'm going to look. I want either like the kind of like the just because, like, first of all, Jaws is just like a great movie start to finish, like great crowd pleaser. It's got everything that you want in a blockbuster. Lawrence of Arabia is a truly great epic film with some thematic weight to it, like a Sir Robert Bolt screenplay, with which for 1962, like, genuinely has some things to say about, British actions in other countries and stuff like that, even if it is about like a white guy going to the desert to act like a Bedouin. But it's not just like, oh, and then
Lawrence of Arabia was the first person to go to Burning Man.
Yeah, like he does.
White guy in the desert. I'm gonna find myself, man.
Because one of the great things about Lawrence of Arabia is that it builds up this hero in the first half, and then it brings him really sharply down to earth.
Oh, and that's why I love the movie. Anytime anyone's like, "Oh, it's a white savior movie," I'm like, "Did you turn it off during the intermission?" They're all like, intermission. They're like, okay, cool. I'm gonna go home. No, it's intermission. The movie continues. You have to wait.
Yeah. Why would you even put a third act in your movie? You can just leave at the half and be like, that's great.
Yeah. They like
guys rule.
Yeah. It's a dude's rock movie. What? But Lawrence soon comes to learn that he doesn't. He didn't fit in with British culture, but he sure as shit isn't a Bedouin. And by the end, he finds himself like a ghost between two worlds.
And there's up in comments, like, he gets fucking sexually assaulted.
Yeah.
Like, it's like bad things happen to him. And like I said, he's like, yeah, he's like, oh, I'm going to do it. I'm going to fit in. And he can't. And he kind of goes back to Britain, a broken man. That's kind of it for him.
Yeah, and I
mean,
think
he was asking for it the way he was dressed, like a bride.
Movie. Okay, actually, no, I always think about this because obviously mixed things, and T.E. Lawrence in his actual, I think, book, like, basically implies something like very terrible happened to him at one point during interrogation. But then there's other accounts that are like, no, this guy was like a sicko. He just like really liked, to get the shit beat out of him, which I'm never sure, because I'm like, I obviously, like, if this happened to the guy, I don't want to victim blame,
Right. Like, it's possible that he made up the story about being raped by Turks, and we probably will never know. You can't.
We gotta find that AI, T. Lawrence AI.
Yeah, like, well, somebody can ask him, but yeah, like, you can't say that Lawrence didn't accomplish incredible things. You might question his motives as like a serving officer in the British Army, and the British had like very specific interests in Arabia, and we've all seen how that turned out. But that kind of illustrates it, doesn't it? Is the fact that we're talking about Lawrence of Arabia and not fucking Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah, there's a lot more that could be done. I mean, I think that the movie's like bereft of themes is probably one of its core failings. Because, I mean, you can even put something in about just, man against nature, where you can show like the callousness towards not just the workers, but, the environment. But I mean, at best, it's just an indifference. It isn't like we need to, kill this herd of animals or whatever. Like, there are elephants in the background where it's like, hey, we're out in Africa, isn't this cool? And it's like Africa just being assholes to them. But like, we don't get something where it's like a cursed journey where it's difficult, like, every step up until they get to the point of the lines, and the lines are the real turning point where everything turns to shit. Or it isn't even just something, simple that is like, we just are freely plowing our way through Africa without any care about what we affect, until then Africa, then makes itself known, and then the shit hits the fan. Like, they don't have anything like that. They took a story that does have a lot of dramatic thematic potential, a lot of weight to it, but they made it about just it's two lions that you never really see. And I mean, we've seen a predator that you don't see at all. We've seen that done better in Predator. We've seen that in Alien. Like, it is possible. I mean, it is like Jaws in that you don't see the monster for the bulk of the movie, but that just means that there isn't any weight to them. Like when they do show up, they show up and kill someone and leave. Show up, kill someone and leave. But like it doesn't seem to like add up to anything. I guess because the body count is so slight. It's like they're people getting killed off screen. They're coolies that we don't care about. So it's like, operating expenses.
Well, Tim, earlier on, and you said this, and you were like, man pushing into the wild and, the wilderness, and the wilderness pushing back. And it was such a beautiful phrase. I'm like, wow, why didn't the Ghost in the Darkness say that? No, and like I said, going back, and I'd originally, Jen, you're the one who brought this up, and I brought it up on here because I steal from people, but you were like, oh, like The Terror.
Yes.
Which is a great example of man attempting to, brave and tame like this untamable frontier, and how it goes so bad. Because obviously on the show is not good because there's an evil polar bear monster that's eating people.
Right. That's just icing.
It is icing on the polar bear cake. But it's everything falling apart. It's these, men who are now stuck, things going wrong that they couldn't have predicted. It's, it's people trying to keep pomp and circumstance when it's not the time for it anymore, motherfucker.
Yes.
And it's so good.
It's something that I've seen brought up elsewhere, and I think I mentioned it before on the show, but like that is one of the keys to horror is having people commit to like doubling down to a plan that has already failed.
Right.
Yeah, because it's like they're already like in the shit. They just don't know how much trouble they're in, and it's the only way out of it is to just recede from it, to like turn around, but no one's willing to turn around. They're pressing on in the wrong direction, and that just causes more bad things to happen. Yeah,
and the fact that they are in an environment where people probably shouldn't even be. Like, at the very least, if you're not Inuit, you probably shouldn't be there. The premise of first season of The Terror is this journey where they're trying to find the Northwest Passage through the Arctic Ocean. And it goes wrong. It doesn't go too good. And it's maybe one of the...
It's cold up there.
And it's maybe one of the best seasons of television that I've ever seen. Personal favorite of mine. It's like dark supernatural Master and Commander. So that's cool, right?
Oh, yeah.
And
how else could you improve on Master and Commander other than dark supernatural Master and Commander?
Put a fucking devil polar bear in it. I don't know. Like, it could be pulled off. And
it's like there's only one, and I'm stealing this joke from like The Onion or something. It was like, there's no more masculine name than Powers Booth. The only way to improve it would be Super Powers Booth.
Let's all watch Tombstone after this.
Yeah, R.I.P.
But kind of going back to that we were talking about is like the Ghost in the Darkness keeps trying to be like, these lions, there's something else. They're evil. But they're like, here's the thing, the polar bear monster and The Terror, you're like, whoa, that's not a polar bear. That's a polar bear monster.
Yeah.
And like the Ghost in the Darkness are coward. I mean, not the lions are cowards, the movie. The movie, it is cowardly because they want to bring these lions. Oh, courage.
Courage. Courage, I tell you. I don't know why Val Kilmer didn't just wrap him up in cellophane.
Yeah. Put him up.
But yeah, so it wants to have its lion's share of the cake and eat it too.
It wants to have its coolies and eat them too. Yeah.
Yeah. So it wants to be like, these lions are really evil, but then when you see them, you're just like, oh, they're just lions and they're clearly dangerous predators. But it doesn't do enough to convince me that these lions are otherworldly.
Yeah, and that's definitely a theme that I want to talk about because it is. It appears to be what really attracted Goldman to the story because he talks about it in his memoirs. He talks about it in an interview, which I capped. This was, I want to say this was in The Guardian, and it's from roughly 1996. Goldman has since passed away. And this is what he says. Queried about The Ghost in the Darkness, the underrated, disagree, 1996 film about two rampaging male lions that rip hundreds of railroad workers to pieces before Val Kilmer brings them to justice. He doesn't really.
He arrests them?
Kills them. Yeah. He sued the fuck out of those lions. He's like, you owe me 130 coolies, motherfucker. Goldman becomes which I'm not going to give to the workers because we pay them like $1 a month.
Right, yeah. That goes to the
pound
shareholders,
a month.
let's be honest. Yeah.
Goldman becomes unexpectedly animated. Weren't those lions terrifying, he exclaims. If you can believe in the existence of evil, you can understand that story. Stephen Hopkins did a terrific job on that film. Disagree. But it wasn't a great commercial success. Nobody wanted the lions to be that successful, which is a weird way to put it. But
the world always getting down on lions.
Like, did the lions have like points or something? Like, were they supposed to get like a part of the gross or something like that? Did they have really good agents? He finishes by saying, "We live in a Disney world," which. Maybe, but I don't know. Like, maybe the movie should have been fucking good.
A Disney World is a dystopia at its core. Let's be honest.
True. I don't want to live in Tomorrowland.
Right now.
Then he adds, maybe we miscast the lions. Why are you blaming the lions, dude? Like, blame your executive producer.
Yeah.
Blame Val Kilmer, who I'm sure like created all kinds of unnecessary drama. But
and it's funny too because there's a way to like convey that well. It's not a lion, but I'm sure both of you have seen the GIF online of that tiger just like leaping out of the tall grass onto a guy riding an elephant. And it's like you just see it's just grass, tiger.
Hold on, I need to look this up.
Yikes. Yeah, like that's terrifying, and that brings us to an interesting question and something which is repeatedly hammered on by people who talk about the film.
Sorry, I just looked this up. Yeah, like...
Jeez.
No, now I'm kind of mad, because going back, obviously, CGI was much more limited, and it's two, basically, like, kind of, lions who have been... They're kind of the Bart the Bear of lions, Yeah. I don't know how scary you could make them without it becoming another Roar. Sorry, but I'm looking at this tiger, and you're just like, wow, like... That is something you never hope to see, ever.
Yeah, and that's something that I think they could have done better to establish. Just taking... Because there is kind of a cliche in movies where they just kind of do an info dump on it, where they can talk about, like, the size of the lion or, like, over its jaws or its paws or something. Because, we've seen pictures, too, of just, like a bear claw compared to, like, a person's hand. Like... a lion's fucking huge. It's like 400 pounds is gonna just like bull right over you.
You also don't need to see it that well because going back to Jaws, like I said, the shark itself is kind of silly and rubbery, you know? But it is framed and directed so well that you're scared of this, shark.
Yeah, and the velociraptors in Jurassic Park too. Like the guy who directed Jaws in Jurassic Park, he's pretty good. Yeah, they should get him to do more killer animal movies.
Yeah, so maybe not the most effective uses of the lions, which should be the linchpin of the film. And I do kind of want to go back to this notion of the lions being evil, because... I feel...
It's like, we're going to pollute the river, too. Roar.
Yeah,
we're going to embezzle people's...
And I don't even
Bernie
have...
Madoff line.
We're skimming off the top.
Yeah, like, man, these lions raped so many lionesses. Like, not chill. Yeah,
actually, hey, you want to be in the movie.
The way I've seen lion mating go, it almost feels like the other way around, where, like, the lioness is practically grabbing... the male by the balls and being like, I want to fuck again. He's like, yes, dear.
It's like that weird cat thing. So the lion has like a weird, painful barbed penis, but a female, and he's just like, I want it rough.
Oh, I have been there.
Cat dick.
I've known guys who would have been more tolerable with a barbed penis. But anyway, but
fuck a lot of cats, yeah.
I love yowling.
Yeah, or even just getting more opportunities with like the lions to do I don't know, more liony stuff. Like they
lick their balls.
Yeah, or
Pee
just
on
seeing,
things. That's funny.
Right.
Like,
Or
what if
just
they
seeing them
peed on
be-
Remington after they killed him?
What
Oh,
if there's
yeah.
a scene where the lions just sleep, and they sleep for 20 hours, and then they wake up for an hour and go back to sleep for another 20 hours?
Damn.
That's that is Ripley in the escape pod with the alien, but it's a lion.
Man, I want to be a lion. But anyway, yeah, like
Blew the lion out the goddamn airlock.
my thing is that I'm not even opposed to a framing where yes, the lions are evil, because like on its face, and I feel like maybe Emma will agree with me, like knowing a lot about animals in the natural world, the idea of an animal being evil is like really fucking funny, because it's like, well, animals aren't really capable of that. Like that
It's
is
giving
something
them
we-
more credit.
I every time people, when I worked at the zoo, and I got asked this by like usually not adults, usually kids, because
Yeah.
kids are kind of learning morals and what's good, what's bad, or animals mean. And obviously, I'm not going to say this to a child because it's quoting Werner Herzog from Grizzly Man. But it is my favorite fucking quote in regards to, shall we say, the morality of animals. And he says, I'm going to do my terrible Val Kilmer accent here. When I look at the bear, I do not see good nor evil, but the cruel indifference of nature. And I love that quote, the cruel
Yes.
indifference of nature. Like, mwah, chef's kiss. Like,
It's so good.
fucking
I love that
perfect
movie.
description. Yeah. But I do view that in these incidents where animals kill people, and even incidents like the Tsavo man-eaters, where animals are killing people on an unprecedented level. No, I don't think these lions are evil. I think circumstances led them to start hunting people.
right.
Yeah, if they were, and yeah, it's funny that you bring up Grizzly Man as well, because the reason that, well, as they established in the movie, the reason that Timothy Treadwell died is because he had made friends with a lot of the bears there, but coming down for more scarce resources were a lot of these more, I don't want to call them wild bears, but like they were less socialized than the ones he knew. They're sort of like the difficult teenage bears.
Yeah, like a lot of the
and-
bears that he lived around had like learned how to tolerate this crazy person.
Yeah, but then the other bears, they're just like, what is this like defenseless piece of meat that's
Yeah,
like getting in my way?
And
Yeah.
also, going back to kind of those bears is like the one that ate him and his poor unfortunate girlfriend he
Yeah.
was dragging along to all this he was camping, I think, in the middle of winter or something. So the bear that went after him was probably really fucking hungry, and here was very easy food,
Yeah.
that it was not familiar with.
And that seems like what happened in in the Tsavo Valley, where it was like we just set up a buffet for lions, and they're like, normally we've got to chase our meal, but like you just left it out, and there's dozens of it.
That is one of the theories. Obviously, at the time, our opinion of, kind of natural history was more, well, can we shoot it and stuff
Right?
it?
Yeah.
But a lot of theories now come to be maybe there was a lack of resources, either natural or man-made, and that lack of resources caused the lions to, out of desperation, encroach further and further into man's territory. I say that very loosely,
Right.
Yeah.
And they were like, wow, this is actually very easy picking. So what became something out of desperation might have just become convenience,
Yeah, the lion town dried up when they put that new freeway in.
It reminds me of that Far Side cartoon with like where like the polar bear has like chewed off the top of an igloo. And he's like, oh, I love these. They have a chewy center or something like that. Where, and like obviously, the Inuit have integrated into the natural world like much better than say like British
Yeah,
people
you got to
in
exist on
Africa.
its terms.
Oh, well,
That's the
everyone
difference.
integrates into stuff better than... What do you think they're all on an island, Jen?
Yeah, like Turf Island is they're not very smart. But so the that idea of maybe aliens conveys that in a way, because like space being like a tremendously hostile environment. And you have Weyland-Yutani, like, basically exploiting its workers to, extract value.
Yeah, it's like
from...
we can control this this killer alien, this perfect destructive organism.
Right.
We can monetize it somehow.
Yeah, and we might lose a few people, but that's just like a couple of
operating
lines in a balance
expenses.
sheet.
Yeah.
But those are all, and again, we're talking about movies which are not this movie because those movies are so much more thematically interesting and like, and
I don't. In this way, yeah, Ghost in the Darkness it does remind one of Jaws and Lawrence of Arabia and Alien and on because you'd rather talk about any of those movies.
And I would be down with something that was maybe like The Terror, or even something which kind of did persuade me that, wow, yes, these non-human animals are evil, quote unquote. Supernatural would be sick, but it doesn't have to be. I don't think the actual Tsavo man-eaters were motivated by anything supernatural. Would be an interesting premise, but
it's just one of those things that just kind of is, like we've encountered a lion that's worse than the lions that we've had to deal with before. It's pushing into a more treacherous environment that it raises the stakes, I guess, for lack of a better term.
It's almost like they keep telling us this, like, damn, these lions are not like other lions. Like, these lions got like a whole cave full of bones. That's fucked up, right? Which is like, that's kind of a
that
cool
was actually
scene.
pretty creepy.
Yeah.
I love the lion cave all the bones, like me when I eat all the chicken wings. Just made of bones.
This Emma. She's not like the other Emmas.
40 chicken wings.
You're like, give me another plate of wings.
No, I have
respect.
it's for my friend too, or we're gonna share.
Respect.
Yeah, just two lions being bros. What the hell?
Yeah, so that's fine. It's just the movie doesn't like sell that premise very well. Like, they are like pretty much just lions when you see them, and these lion actors are doing a reasonable job. There's a little bit of CG, which is not horrible. It's used very sparingly. They appear to have done a good job with.
They do the Sam Raimi cam a few times,
which is kind of cool. Like, I did like the camera
POV on the baboon.
Oh, that poor baboon.
Oh.
Yeah, I felt bad for that baboon.
I did. I don't know if that's true about, it says that lions hate the sound of a baboon. I mean, I believe it if you're a wild animal and you're like, primates of every stripe are assholes.
Yeah, I feel like, I know that lions have a somewhat fraught relationship with hyenas and such, but I don't know much about their relationship with baboons. It's probably not good. But Emma, one thing that I did want to ask you was, I know that obviously the Field Museum in Chicago has the stuffed lions, the Tsavo man-eaters. They have their skulls and everything, which I believe are on display. Is there a consensus on what made these lions do this now that they have been examined?
There's some interesting theories about how one of the lions had like a damaged tooth or something.
Right.
And like it might be like, oh, maybe it was like trickier for him to hunt because of that. So it was trickier to go after like a zebra that could run like 40 yards and kick you in the face versus a tent of, people
sleeping,
going, kind of thing. Yeah, infection at the root of his canine tooth, which made it harder for lions to hunt. Because normally, for those of you who are morbidly curious or have a vor fetish, if you ever get eaten by a lion, what they tend to do is use their jaws and they grab their prey and basically suffocate them because they have an incredible bite force. Lion teeth are actually really interesting because unlike our teeth, which go up and down, lion teeth kind of go to the sides. They sort of slice like scissors. So if you just imagine like an incredible force. Yeah. I think I shared this with you guys when we talked about Roar.
Yeah, just ask Melanie Griffith.
Lion experts coming in and talking lion movies. Yeah.
Welcome to my TED Talk. Lion teeth.
I almost lost part of my face to a lion, but anyway. So I was 13 and I was living with Don Johnson. But anyway,
I mean, maybe she just needed a way out.
Oh God,
that's how this happens. Yeah.
I do feel a little bad for Melanie. Like I do, I like Tippi Hedren is an actress, and I felt like she has redeemed herself somewhat with her good work with animals, but I don't think she was that great of a mom in a lot of ways.
Also, Tippi Hedren, a terrible construction foreman.
So Melanie Griffith will not talk about Roar at all.
I could totally understand that.
She absolutely will not. Her and Jan Dubont, I think. Okay, so
Yeah.
I know this is not what the word trauma. I know this is not what the word trauma bond means, but there really should be a word for people who like come together after experiencing something horrific.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Like and in fact, if you listeners have not yet heard it, you should go back and listen to our episode about Roar with Emma, which I think I will take the opportunity to link because it's a fun one. And the movie itself is like off the fucking chain.
It's really irresponsible, yes.
It's wild. And if you want to know more about it, you can also read Tippi's self-titled memoir. And she's fairly candid about the fact that they should not have done what they did.
Absolutely.
She was like, yeah, we fucked up. Like, this was a really bad idea. Also, her husband at the time was insane, which didn't help. I don't know what particular brand of executive function disorder this man had, but it was...
Toxoplasmosis. That's
too many lion
bites.
turds.
yeah.
Well, I mean, you get bitten by enough lions and have your legs swell up to the size of a watermelon. Like, it's probably going to fuck you up a little.
No, I think the gangrene just sort of made its way up into his brain.
Yeah.
Well,
But
like,
yeah.
like cordyceps, but gangrene.
I grew right out the top of his head. But yeah, so I guess that does kind of make it more interesting that maybe there isn't really a defined reason for these lions to do something which really cuts against the nature of most lions. Like Emma tells us, like, lions aren't generally going to go after humans, even though they might be easy pickings to a degree. But for whatever reason, these lions ate, I mean, estimates go as high as like 130 people. It may not have been that much, but even a pair of lions who eat 20 people is like insane because it's so uncommon. And it is an interesting story.
That's a lot of people to eat.
Yeah, it's just not interestingly told at all.
Yeah, it's like Emma's saying, you know, it'd be like, oh, and this woman ate 40 chicken wings.
Well, it depends who's making the movie. I know that friend of the show, Bitter Corella, would love to watch a woman eat 40 chicken wings.
No,
Right, yeah,
what if it's
that's
like
true.
framed like Darren Aronofsky? It's just someone eating chicken wings, just tears going down there. Oh, it's so sad. This person.
Oh, go fat.
Roar.
They
Jennifer
should get the guy
Lawrence
who
eats
did
40
Jaws.
chicken wings.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, whatever happened to that guy?
I don't know. I think he like went all serious and he just does modeling movies now. Yeah, well.
Yeah, his production company, Maudlin Productions. Oh no, it's Amblin.
Okay.
That was silly. Geez, did we cover everything we wanted to cover about Ghosts in the Darkness?
The thing that we didn't cover, there were two funny moments. One didn't land for me. It might have at the time. But at the end, there is Val Kilmer being chased by one of the lions at the bridge because, you know, the cat just pops out.
Meow.
It was, you know, it was hiding in a cat trap. Oh, that's what they should have done. They just should have set out like two giant shoe boxes. They could have dealt with it immediately.
No,
Oh yeah, and then
what
the
you
lions
need
just
is
curl up in the box.
Yeah.
what you need to do is they could have ordered on Amazon some very elaborate like cat toys, taken them
Yeah.
out, left the box there, and the lion goes straight to the box.
To beat the lion, you must think like the lion.
Oh, instead of constructing that structure that Patterson built that he learned about in India, he should have built like an elaborate lion tree, like a cat tree but for lions. And then they would have been like, we'll just go get in this box instead.
Yeah, then we'll hide in the train car and be like, typical lions. Or, you know, build a giant laser pointer. And just, you know,
The technology
draw
just
'em
wasn't
out like
there.
that. Yeah, we could, if only we'd known. But there's a moment where Val Kilmer is being chased by the lion on the bridge, and this is, again, like, if someone ran this as a Call of Cthulhu game, I would have enjoyed it. But Val Kilmer's running from the lion on the bridge, and what's his name? His black friend. I don't remember the
Samuel.
character's name. Samuel. So he's there. He's got the gun. He's got the rifle pointed at the tiger, and he's like, Patterson down, like, down. But as it gets closer, and he's not listening to him, the line gets closer. Then he's just like, down. Nope. And then he just turns around and runs.
Yeah,
I can totally see someone like being in that situation where it's like, I'm going to do the right thing until no, I missed my chance. I'm just looking out for myself now.
there is a lot. There are a lot of scenes in this movie of people like wanting to shoot a gun and not shooting a gun.
Yeah, I mean, how hard is it to shoot a lion in the face?
Like, I understand that might not be the easiest shot to get.
I don't know. Like,
but...
I feel like it's sort of a big target. Lions are a big animal,
Yeah.
It's not like you're shooting like a little cat.
I mean, that would be fun.
I shot a lion in my pajamas once. How he got in my pajamas, I'll never know.
Thank you, Groucho. I understand that it's probably not the easiest thing to hit a lion that is charging at you, but there is a ridiculous scene where they're in the quote-unquote contraption that Patterson built, the contrabulous fab-traption of Patterson.
The immaculate contraption.
Yeah,
yes.
where he basically sticks a bunch of workers in there who can shoot, like guys who know how to hunt, and he's like, okay, like this is the way it's going to work.
Ostensibly.
Oh, that fucking Three Stooges ass scene.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's really, and Patterson is properly infuriated, like, afterward.
You had one job,
right?
I think for me, it's not that they keep missing the lion, because there are the barriers there and stuff. It's the fact that there's like, what? They knock over the lantern.
Yeah.
Fucking Three Stooges shit.
Like, I was expecting those guys to burn to death too, which would have been like something, but
interesting.
Maybe that would have been a bridge too far. I don't know. And Patterson.
The bridge wasn't done yet, Jen. That's the point.
And it's really important that they build this bridge for their white masters. It's so important. So I get it. I get it's maybe hard to shoot a lion in this box, but it just ends up getting fucking frustrating.
It's harder to shoot a lion in your pajamas.
And
Groucho.
Always with movies, there's always with action movies, there's always a suspension of disbelief. Guns always have more bullets than they would actually hold. People make incredible shots that they couldn't make in real life, and people will miss shots that should have been easy. And real life is like that. People will pull a trigger and, oh no, I forgot to load the gun, or something equally stupid. But
that's a fumble. That's rolling double zeros on percentile dice.
Right. So, which is fine, except there are so many moments like this in the movie that you're just like, come on, like.
Yeah, or like even shooting it and like maybe that doesn't phase it or something like that could be something, but it's more like, we tried shooting it but didn't.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Like, you would almost expect more kind of like panicky like shots than, or just more so than people just being like, oh man, like I don't shoot. I could pull the trigger, but like I don't want to. Especially because there's a point where Patterson like clears vultures away from a corpse by just wasting a bunch of bullets firing at them. And it's like, I get that he's mad, but it's like, do you have unlimited ammo? Like, what is this?
I know, I'm like, dude, it's like the 1800s. Like, doesn't it take you like 30 minutes to like reload your gun?
Yeah, it's it a lot of it just like kind of doesn't make sense, kind of doesn't work. And this is actually like wait, before I go off, Tim, did you say there was another kind of amusing moment you wanted to talk about?
No, I mean, I didn't want to talk about it. It was just that earlier on where he's talking about, it sounds like you really love your wife. Like, I have 4 wives.
Oh.
I don't like them. Like,
yeah, Samuel Peak Boomer. The old ball and chain. All 4 ball and chain.
Yeah, his last name is actually Lockhorn.
Yeah.
Samuel Lockhorn. Yeah, so...
chases him around the kitchen with a spear. I don't know.
Oh, God.
Our podcast is going to get canceled.
This is I guess that's, okay, fine. That's like character texture, but...
It's pretty weak.
It's weak and it's silly because it's like it does. I mean, we don't even know anything about Samuel. He's just like, oh, they're like, oh, he's kind of the backbone. He keeps all kind of the different like ethnic groups kind of together and stuff because he speaks English and probably other kind of languages and everything. And then it's just weird, like, oh, the Africans. They have I mean, does Melanie say that in Roar? And she's like, Mom, in Africa, you can have like 5 wives. I don't know. It's just like a weird thing. And I want to be like, I don't know, man. I'm going to look up what, ethnic group this guy is. And I'm going to prove that in this group, they actually, didn't practice, polygamy.
Yeah. And, I mean, it's expecting a lot from mainstream film from the mid-90s, but it's like, you guys, like, really didn't put any thought into, like, any of the texture to the story. Like, any of the...
Yes.
Yeah, and, I can't believe, like, I didn't think of that, but I'm really glad that, like, you guys brought it up, is the whole, like, okay, so this Irish guy is, like, working for British interests, like... That's kind of wild. You can make, like, hay out of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of thematic possibilities that none of them were followed up on. And that's why, it's a movie for, I don't know, 12-year-olds.
Well, but the thing is, 12-year-olds would be bored at this. Like, it doesn't have a lot of gore. Or vor,
There's that, too.
if you will.
Right, well...
I remember very distinctly, because I was 12 at the time when this movie came out, and I was like, I was in my I have to go see movies phase, and I would just like... My mom would drop me off at the movie theater. I saw so many shitty 90 movies. And I never watched this one. And you know why? It's because I loved Roger Ebert, and Roger Ebert was like, this movie sucks. And I was like, I trust you, Roger Ebert. So I didn't go and see Ghost in the Darkness.
Yeah, I looked it up. 0.5 star.
Yeah.
Damn!
And he's vicious, but he's right. He's like, this is not a so bad it's good movie. This movie's boring.
Mm-hmm.
And he's completely right. Like, I think I like the premise a little more than he did, but it's a very unremarkable, very forgettable movie.
That's really true. And
a story about lions fucking eating people.
And it's boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, it could have been so much wilder. For all the effort they went to manage Val Kilmer on the set, it could have been so much more. It wasn't even
how many people did Val Kilmer eat on set?
Not as many as Armie Hammer did.
See, maybe that's it. Lion bites actors. That's not a story. Actor bites lion.
That's true.
Yeah.
Damn. Yeah, like, this didn't even end up being a fascinating disaster like Island of Dr. Moreau. Because, I mean, that movie is truly misconceived on every level. It's astonishing. It's astonishing enough that they made a whole documentary about how disastrous the production is. And maybe the production of this is difficult, but like nobody's making a documentary about production on this movie because it's not that fucking interesting.
I've also seen Island of Dr. Moreau. I don't know if I'd call it a good, bad movie, but like, you and your friends could watch it and make quippy quips about it. You could have it. You could talk about it on a podcast and have more to say than like, oh, it's not very interesting. Let's talk about Lawrence of Arabia.
Well, I appreciate...
It's a good movie to not respect, yeah.
I appreciate both of you doing, as we often say on the podcast, doing what you could with what we had, which is Ghosts in the Darkness. This was streaming on Paramount Plus. I believe it isn't anymore, but who cares? It's not very good.
And I mean, there are plenty of other movies that have more of Emily Mortimer in them.
That's true. More Val.
And better movies of people getting mauled by animals, and probably even better movies about the colonization of Africa, if that's your thing, you fucking sicko.
Yeah, maybe, I don't know, you can watch Apocalypse Now, you can watch...
it's been done.
You go watch the Taylor Swift music video where she's like hanging out with a baby leopard or something.
Oh, is that...
Ironically, it's familiar territory.
Is that the one with where the actor she's with is like Clint Eastwood's son?
Probably. It's Wildest Dreams. I'm not a, whatever they call themselves, I'm not a T-stan or whatever the fuck. So I just remember I got like some slack because everyone's like, she's doing a colonialism.
Oh, God.
Oh. And she was, but, I just, there's a lot going on in the world. You got to pick your battles.
She's a monster for the ages, just like that Japanese act, Gwen Stefani.
I mean, to be fair, at least Taylor Swift has never insisted that she's actually African.
Yeah. Not even South African.
Yeah, you can get away with that.
Well, maybe I think a more interesting movie might be if they stretched out Katy Perry's Roar to feature length.
Yeah. I don't know if we need a second Roar stretched out.
Well,
Imagine
a whole movie of Katy Perry being mauled by different wild cats.
Some weirdo in the dark corner of the world has written a story about that, I promise.
Yeah.
Hey, I'm right here. What are you talking about?
Yeah, Tim is very, very active on an archive of our own. Anyway, go write your own Ghost in the Darkness fic, because it'll be more interesting than this. Emma, what is your YouTube channel again?
You can find me at Hyenas and Gin. So hyenas, the animal, and the inclusive term. Gin as the alcohol, all one word. I am currently, in the polite world, we say we are between jobs. So please go watch my videos, check them out. If you like them, I have a Patreon. If you have money, I know none of us do. I feel like all my support comes from about like 5 maladjusted queers all sending $20 bills to one another.
Hey, those are our friends.
But if you have a $20 bill and you want to give it to me, please do. For my Patreon. I'm currently trying to work on more YouTube videos. In the meantime, until I find gainful employment again, I'm actually currently working on a video about Roar, speaking of. So, very excited about that.
Highly, highly, highly recommend. So please do check it out. Anyway, Roar.
Yeah, just don't get between two lions.
Yeah.
Yeah, especially not two lions who are bros.
Yeah. Do you think they Eiffel Towered any of the workers?
Everyone thinks we're gay because we're mainless. Like, fucking sucks.
We're Metro Lions.
It's like the cis-normative values we have put upon these lions.
That's why, they're incel lions. Yeah. And they snapped.
Oh, yeah, that's why they were so violent. Because
Yeah.
they were incels.
Yep.
They would post on Reddit, and then they would get all worked up, and then they would go eat people.
I've been lion pilled, bro.
Lion pilled. Yeah, we're pretty much going to cover all the lion movies, I guess.
Yeah,
I can't think of any more. We covered all the ones which were important in my childhood.
And Jen ain't lion.
Wah, wah.